It only took 20 years to get to it, but now we have Tales from the Hood Part 2. A film that is made by the same people that made the original, but seems to lose just a tad bit of that atmosphere and spark that the original had. So we don't have the same guy here as the leading guy. This guy ain't bad though. He kind of reminds you of the old guy, which his name kind of skips me who he was. But this time, of course, we don't have a gap tooth, but we do have plenty of opportunities for this guy to very hilariously say the shit. This movie is probably more political than it is anything else, but that's okay, I guess, living in the environment we live in these days. The wraparound for this, there is 4 stories, but the wraparound focuses on him telling stories to a AI robot that this really racist guy is building because he wants a robot to clean up the streets. Thus, he tells us stories, and we see them unfold on the screen. There are 4 stories. The first one, we see some cameos from a character from the last movie there. It's still probably too silly for its own good, and that is one thing that this movie kind of does. It gets a little bit too far over on the silly side from time to time. It manages to be very watchable, even if it's definitely not on that level of the original one. It does look like a straight-to-video movie, which it is, but it's still got a little bit of something there to keep you hanging on. The second story is probably one of the stronger ones there. It's about some guys in the hood, as we're actually in the hood on this one, that are trying to beat up a former pimp and find out where his money is. One thing leads to another, and we have a fake psychic brought into the mix. And I don't want to spoil it, but things get pretty hilarious there. I believe that one is probably one of the rare ones that live up to the first film, and probably could have been in the first film. Some other stuff kind of fails in that regards, but that one is really, really strong. The third story is probably the weakest. It's about 2 guys that are kind of like, you know, trying to go out and meet chicks on the internet, so they lie. And they meet these 2 chicks, and one thing leads to another there. And again, I don't want to spoil it, but it's pretty simple. It's kind of silly. It doesn't really fit with the theme of the movie because there's no hood here. It doesn't really feel like it belongs. So it feels more like filler than anything else. That one really kind of hurts the movie's overall score. The fourth one, again, probably feels like something we might have seen in the original film. It has that same tone to it, and it's a woman who is pregnant, but she's haunted by these nightmares of this stuff that happened years ago in Mississippi. She wakes up and her husband is actually working for, you guessed it, a racist white man. Again, one thing leads to another because I don't want to spoil anything, but it has a pretty neat little twist to it, and that one felt pretty strong. That one and the second one, and the first one being kind of makes it what it is. The third one's just a throwaway, and the wraparound's pretty solid, but it don't feel like it has the same atmosphere that the original film had, which hurts it. This may sound silly, but the original film, everything that happens in the wraparound is nighttime. He goes into the funeral, you know, the 3 guys go into the funeral parlor. It just feels spooky. This one happens during daytime, so, and with it evolving like a robot, it kind of feels a little bit out of place for a Tales from the Hood film. Still, it's funny, and that goes a long way. And probably the payoff is probably worth it, as the film finds every little chance it can to call back to the original one. That being said, Tales from the Hood 2 was nowhere near as good as the first film, but I did not expect it to be. It's funny, it has some good parts to it, it has some filler, and it does kind of feel cheap. That being said, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5 and recommend you watching it, especially if you love the first Tales from the Hood. Just know it's not on that level. There's no extras on this disc, by the way. So, if you like the movie, good. If you don't like the movie, you don't really have nothing extra there.